Now I just barely hear it.
I heard it. That's the noise right there. Good it's not the motor, but bad that now I gotta take the transmission out too.
There's these holes here for little, I don't even know, it's like maybe a drain or something for this torque converter. Obviously they didn't have it in the holes, and as you can see there's a dent in that. Oh yeah, it's pissing out. You can see it right here. So there's your pinhole. Pissing water out.
Welcome back everyone to another Fast House Motorsports video. We are back on this 1968 Mustang Coupe. Compared to the drama we dealt with in the previous episode, majority of the work we got done wasn't exciting. So we just put our heads down and got a lot of the work done off camera, but I'll show you the parts we were able to capture. Starting off, Zach came back to the wiring under the dash to try and run everything accordingly, so you could actually tell what was what. Here's a reminder of what it looked like before. Not very good. And then the after of how it turned out once he was finished. Moving on to the outside, we got started on installing the new headlights, testing if they worked. We then got the brake lights, the blinkers, and all the running lights to work properly. But make no mistake, this was no easy task due to, again, everything being wired incorrectly under the dash. And finally, now the fun part.
God bless you. When we started it up with coolant in it, it started smoking, and come to find out there was a pinhole in one of the dowels, which again, super uncommon to happen, but of course, you know. So I called the engine builder, he's like, hey, you know, I typically don't use those, but you know, whatever, it was maybe during COVID and I didn't have the brass ones, whatever. So he's like, just replace it, I'll take care of you. So we thought like, all right, let's do it in the car. We'll see if we can do it in the car, and end up being that it was probably in the worst spot, but it ended up working out fine. So we took the motor mount out, and so we got it jacked up in a jack stand or whatever you want to call this thing. We were able to get the motor mount out and then pop this. I got to get some pliers and get that off, but we'll get that out now and press in the new one. And this is all I use, just a little punch and a hammer. You hit it from one side, twist it sideways. Obviously all the coolant came out, and then we'll grab a pair of channel locks and pop it out and pop the new one in.
After getting the freeze plug in and making sure it was properly sealed, we moved on to getting all of the existing brake and fuel lines replaced.
So that's not how you do a fuel line. Not to mention, this is not a PTFE line, this is just a push lock hose. And they're all like that, not done. I already started taking this apart, but this one was ran so tight right here. This car is, mind you, this hasn't even been driven yet. Not all the way seated. So this is all gonna get replaced and hard lined. And also this brake line here, hard lined to this rear end. So I'm not sure how well that would fare driving it, but a lot of good, nice stuff on this car. Just the execution was less than ideal in the assembly. All right, moving on to the engine bay here with the same fuel line setup. There, no bulkheads, just straight through metal on both. So obviously that's not gonna work. Both of these will have to be replaced. So we'll get bulkheads in there and run the new lines. We actually made a lot of progress on this. So we've got engine bay electrical sorted out, still needs to be loomed and things like that. Body harness has been sorted out. So we got all the lights working, dash is working now, all the gauges work, minus the fuel gauge still has to be hooked up under the car, but it's all been ran to be hooked up. I just haven't raised it up and done it yet. Like I said, everything in here has been done and verified that it worked and either been repaired, reran, Stuff's been re-loomed. I extended some wires to the battery, got all the gauges working in the car, redid, I don't say redid, I just will say reorganized all the electrical behind the dash, because a lot of times, I think I've already mentioned this, but people get into these rewires and think they get overwhelmed just because there's a lot of wires and they all have to go their own way. And so they get to a certain point where they're just, fuck it, just put it in and it'll work, sort of. So it creates more work for me when people do that, but I mean, it's just one of those things that if you don't do it right, it makes it even worse down the road if you have any problems or troubleshooting, because everything's just a clusterfuck and you don't know what's what. So I go through and branch things out, tape it up and fix it. So if it's not me that goes back into the car and has to fix something, you can at least see what's going on, you know, in there. And everything gets like a connector if it needs to be serviceable or removed or whatever.
You have some pictures of like bad connections, right?
I do, yeah. But well, that wasn't behind the dash, but that connector will indicate the type of work that was being done, because I don't use that stuff. I solder everything, and if I don't solder it and it needs a connection, I use high quality either copper or high quality like bullet connectors or spade connectors. I don't use like AutoZone spade connectors. Everything gets heat shrinked, and you know, I have the right tools to crimp everything, and I have factory crimp tools to redo. I did have to redo some of the factory plugs because they didn't have the right crimp tools. So the wire, you can either split the wire or it'll cut it, or it doesn't make the right, so you can pull it out. So if you have the right tools to do electrical, it's really important. There's other things you can do without the right tools, but when it comes to electrical, you definitely need the right stuff to do it the correct way. Redid all the fuel lines. I'm waiting for some fittings to finish. I have a couple fittings on order to finish the return line from the regulator back to the hard line. We did an all new stainless steel line, and it's ran, you know, tucked up into the body so it won't catch on anything. We got it running, and the first time I went to rev it up, it started pissing out the side of the block. So I'm like, well, that's not good. End up being a freeze plug. So we popped it out, put the new one in, and we got it up to temp yesterday. Coolant system pressurized, everything, and ended up being good. So no leaks, nothing. Had a crystal geyser yesterday, but that was self-inflicted. Somebody bought pre-bent lines and then they fucked them all up trying to put them in, because I don't know what they did, but they didn't do it right. That's all I know. Because like this is not, like this is completely just jacked. This should not be like this. And then you got like 6 different bends here because they took the bends out of it, trying to make it made up to this, and just a lot of weird stuff that I don't know, it almost seems rushed maybe, or I don't know what, but because there's some things I noticed where I'm like, okay, somebody, at some point, somebody kind of knew what they were doing. Not fully, but they at least, you could tell they tried, because there was some things where it was like, okay, like this is passable, not the way I would do it, but it's okay. But then I think at some point it just got, just fucking throw it together, fuck it. The electric fan. I have to get the shroud for that and put the electric fan in, and I need to get the relay for it so that it worked. This will be the same thing that kind of we're alluding to with the Nova. It doesn't have a modern computer, so there is still a way to basically have an electric fan come on and off without having something triggering it, like, you know, an ECU. As you guys saw, we got the fan done on this. Off camera, we got the power steering hooked up. I had to modify the lines a little bit. Got the steering column put in, got the belt on, I mean, it runs, drives, steers. So the next video you guys will see of this is of it actually 100% complete as far as the job that's supposed to be done. We'll walk through and just show, and then we'll get, you know, some driving videos and stuff like that. So we got the whole fuel system done, all new brake lines, new rear brakes to clear these smaller wheels. I had to turn the axle flange down to clear these because this has a upgraded rear end in it, and the axle flanges were like 30 thousandths too large, so we had them turned down like 60 thousandths just to make sure we had enough room at the local machine shop. You know, fix the electrical on the fuel pump, sending unit, all new hard lines, new soft lines. Soft lines from the tank to the hard line, so this is easily serviceable. And then new hard line here. We got our filter mounted up here, and then obviously a new hard line all the way down to here. We reused the original return line and just put a new fitting on it to go from hard line here to soft line, and then soft line here and a hard line, and then two soft lines with bulkheads here, and then new lines up in the engine bay. Got all the brakes.
The same spot you're standing
I know. Brakes bled. I had to get 3 different sets of these to finally get the right ones. The ones that were supposed to fit for this were still loose. It's good now. We had to put a little bit of a spacer on there just to get the cotter pin to hold the castle nut. And then same thing with these upper ball joints. Went through and checked all the bolts, marked them all so we know everything that we touched is tight. I think that's pretty much it for this. And now we're gonna drive it. I mean, oh, and we replaced this thing. Replaced the shaft on here, and that all, we have reverse lights now. Got that all wired up. It doesn't start and drive anymore. It's the first time it's been driven in God knows how long.
So we got new wheels and tires.
And then obviously they're green, but those, he bought them from a buddy of his, and his car was green or whatever, so he's just gonna get them repainted. Drives. It's just fucking deafening loud in the car.
Use some AirPods, buddy.
Oh, wow. Well, it's leaking at a leak there, and a little leak there. Coolant. Possibly an oil leak somewhere. That's oil. You know what I think it is? So it's either the valve cover is leaking right up there at the top. The very top corner right there, you see how it's all wet? So that's part of it. That's burning oil. Okay, so
What do you think of the driving performance?
the way it drives is nice. Like as far as just the
comfortability?
yeah, it's not, it's tight, right? It's not like making a bunch of clanky, shitty noises or nothing. And When you go over bumps, it's nice and tight. Steering feels good. The only problem is because it has, I'm thinking it probably has like a 3400 stall in it. It's, I mean, it's winding up when you're driving. I mean, you notice it. You know, at we're probably only going, what, 50? It was at 3,000 RPM. Driving this on the freeway would be a nightmare. It's just a lot of RPM, just the whole time, you know what I mean? So, and I don't know what gears are in the back. I mean, guessing by that, probably something like a 390 or a 373 or something along, or maybe even a 410, I don't know. Oh yeah, there it is. What is it? Oh wow. See it right there on the bottom? It's coming from the head stud, or the head gasket, which I highly doubt, but it's possible, right? Anything's possible. Right there, you see all that spray? Yeah. So I guess I'll get under there.
We're gonna try and take these head studs out
Just this one. 'Cause it's
in the
leaking.
car. Yeah, that's the one that's leaking.
I'm gonna put some thread sealer on it.
Threads are messed up.
I don't know what's going on, but it doesn't feel good. So I mean, there was thread sealer on there, it just didn't hold up very well, I guess. I'm not 100% sure that this is gonna fix it, but I'm 95%. So we pulled the stud, cleaned it, resealed it with thread sealant, drained the coolant out, dried it, put the stud back in, bottomed it out. Now we're gonna run our nut down, torque it. I'll probably let it sit for an hour or so and then start it, and hopefully we don't have any more smoking. I think there's another one on that side we're gonna have to do the same thing with. What I think happened is this motor sat for a long time. So I'm thinking, because there was thread sealant on there, maybe there just wasn't enough, or I don't know, or maybe it just sat and it got crusty and then it was able to bleed out because it sat for so long. I don't know, but. So when I pulled this bolt out to do the head bolt, you can see how it's all shiny and flattened out. So I don't know, at some point when they put the headers on, mind you, this I did not do this. This was already done when they got here. So we ended up having to take the header bolt out. Come to find out, the threads are fucked. So now I'm chasing them, or tapping them rather, re-tapping, to give us a nice clean thread to go back in, instead of just fucking it up even more by putting in another bolt and ruining that bolt and then ruining the threads even further. Nice and easy, no drama. We made this little 3/8 just for doing.
You got soft hands, brother. You got soft hands. You ain't never worked a day in your goddamn life.
These like super tight headers on these motors. Dry. It's like the driest of the dry. Okay, so that seems to have resolved our spraying coolant issue. I don't know, guess we'll go drive it again, see what the next fucking problem is.
So when did they add the mister feature to the engines?
So that was late 80s, I think they started doing the misting. There's a cooling effect.
Yeah, it cools the engine.
Yeah. Keeps the header tubes a lot cooler.
It's using coolant too, so
yeah, so it's spraying. If it sprays the coolant on the header tubes, optimum power. You do have to refill coolant quite frequently, but you know, it's a trade-off. So if you want to go fast, you gotta pay to play, you know. Okay, let's go drive it.
No.
Yes. I'm praying that I'm right, because if I'm right, it's not a big deal.
He's burning
He's burning out with no fucking tire.
Alright, so what are you thinking?
Okay, so what I think it is I don't think they put a cap in the dipstick. hole of the block. And I think when we're revving it up, it's spitting oil out of that hole and making the smoke. There's a hole in the block that the dipstick tube would go in on the side. And I don't think they plugged it. And I think that's where the oil's coming. Almost positive it's open. Right between these two header tubes. All right, you guys just saw it is open. It is open. We'll plug it. We need to jack it up, plug the hole, and then I'm almost like 98% sure it's not gonna do that anymore. I'm 2% sure it is. So we'll just do that and then it should be good. Smoke. No more smoky smoke. Yeah, I mean, I guess it runs and drives now and it feels pretty strong. It's just, I wish the brakes were better and I'd feel more comfortable kind of
Testing.
really pushing it hard. I mean, everything else feels really good. The suspension feels tight. I mean, it's really annoying driving inside the car because it's so fucking loud and there's shit clattering around in it. I mean, other than that, it feels good. I mean, it feels like it runs pretty good.
It seems to be getting better too.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's gonna probably after the next drive, it'll be fully, it's already broken in. I mean, just after doing that, it's good. So it's not really gonna get much better than what we just did because we really got it, you know, high load, good RPM, kind of held it there for a while. That's it. It's
But do you think there was a difference between the first drive, very first one?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Yeah, you feel it.
Yeah, and I went wide open throttle that time, all the way to the floor.